the sect that the Chamberlains
We all know
are
what's at stake, but one thing is extremely important, especially in these times
in
of
charge of is
geopolitical rivalry.
aesthetic.
Let's try to maintain
Aesthetic. Aesthetic, I think.
where major
Aesthetic.
powers can cooperate to the benefit of the people, the environment, and in the end, the whole world.
Hydrocarbons, rare earth metals, and new maritime routes made accessible by climate change.
Richard Chamberlain is saying they're
activity in the Arctic. And China is now entering the field with millions of euros in investment. It has, for example, the largest embassy in
effeminate
Iceland,
men.
which creates problems for the EU.
If the EU wants to
They're effeminate men.
somehow gain a role for itself, it has to
Youngish.
avoid
No,
being dumped
Chamberlain.
together with China, which is being seen as
I
a
do.
very aggressive
York.
Arctic entity.
Michael York.
So China's way of trying to force itself into the
Alvin's
region
run.
has complicated matters for the EU.
The Conference
I
of
don't
Arctic
know.
Region Parliamentarians takes place this week, where cooperation is high on the agenda. But if the EU is to compete with the US and Russia, it will have to target its actions more effectively and understand that it
Seems
can't
maybe
compete with
there
two
is.
superpowers in every area.
When it comes to, I guess, what you call geopolitics issues like environmental concerns or economic development, I think there's room for the EU to play a very constructive role if it's able to identify those areas where it can actually play a role. Climate change is very good. Is a very good example. But I think if the EU
I didn't
believes
destroy
that
it.
it can gain the same status as the US or Russia, then it'll face some pretty significant obstacles.
Brussels intends to launch further discussions to meet the new challenges of the Arctic. Christopher Peters, Euronews, Brussels.
Just no. Not mine. She had drawings on the cover. Yeah, they were kind of. Oh, good. Yeah.
Hello, this is Euronews Tonight, and these are our top stories.
A little immature.
Denmark becomes the first country in Europe to ditch AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. As concerns grow over vaccines linked to rare blood clots, the EU puts its faith in Pfizer-BioNTech with a major new contract. We'll hear why Afghanistan's
Does anybody
security
care?
risks spiraling out of control following Joe Biden's decision to withdraw US troops.
Look, I would know and
A
know.
policewoman has been charged with manslaughter
Never seen
for
alien
fatal shooting of a black
a
man
form
in
like that.
Minneapolis.
I just saw the little fluttery things.
Denmark
Fluttering.
says it will immediately stop using AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine
It was
after
round.
reports of a possible link between the jab and the very rare cases of blood clots. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the bloc will now focus its supply on mRNA vaccines such as Pfizer. It's negotiating a third contract with the manufacturer for more doses, and Ursula von der Leyen made it clear that other ones may follow.
The Chamberlains are English.
mRNA technology to boost its vaccination campaign. A new agreement with Pfizer-BioNTech has just been reached to speed up the delivery of 50 million additional doses in the second
Their
quarter of 2021.
belief system may have
The
started
contract
with
the pharma giant is also being negotiated
Houston
for
Stewart
another
with a W,
1.8
Stewart
billion doses
Chamberlain.
in 2022 and 2023. European Commission President Ursula
The
von der
Chamberlains
Leyen
are off to the
announced that not only
side,
the production of the vaccines, but also
to the
all
right
essential
of the
components
throne of
will be
England.
based in the EU.
At a certain point in time, we might need booster
If you're
jabs
sitting on the throne, they're to the
reinforce
right of the
prolonged
throne
immunity. And
of
if
England.
an escape variant
And they're in
occurs,
charge of a
we will
sect
need to develop
that is
vaccines that are
aesthetic,
adapted to the new
which
escape
in
variant.
my understanding means
And
spiritual,
in sufficient
ethereal, that
quantities.
kind of thing.
And having all this in
Richard
mind,
Chamberlain
having
says they are
learned lessons in this
effeminate
pandemic,
men.
we need to focus now on technologies that have proven their worth. mRNA vaccines are a clear case in point.
This decision follows delays in the Johnson & Johnson vaccine delivery due to reports of rare blood clots. A a side effect that also affects a small
No.
percentage of people receiving the
But
AstraZeneca
I
vaccine.
may not have a
A
paradigm
vaccine
for
that is
that.
now reserved for certain age groups and
Effeminate
banned entirely
men.
in Denmark. Experts are afraid this could slow down
Effeminate.
the rollout in Europe.
Cupid.
I really fear that this is
Cupid
going
has a
to
little-
delay things and increase public frustration with what many believe
No
is
comment.
rather muddled through policies
Just-
of the European Union.
If he wants a
going
woman,
as
you're gonna
far
have
as
to help him a
its
little.
banishment of the vaccine rollout. So this is not very good news. Though it is reassuring, I have to say that Pfizer.
You know,
is
he's
being
gonna
asked
want a
in their
woman, and the woman's
conversation
gonna
with
want to
Pfizer
feel
to try and
something.
ramp up the production.
Right?
The European Commission insists that the goal of vaccinating 70% of the population by summer is still feasible. Brian Carter for Euronews.
Jeffrey
Right.
Lazarus is an associate
No,
professor at
thank
the
you.
Barcelona Institute for Global Health. He says Denmark made this decision because they have supplies of other vaccines.
You have to remember
I
that
only
medicines
found it
agency
by
declared
accident.
that the AstraZeneca
Flipping channels, not
vaccine
having
was
anything to
safe.
watch.
Some countries, including Norway,
Probably,
earlier,
right?
paused it. Now Denmark has
Some
decided
kind of
not to use it.
minister.
Denmark, Norway, other EU countries have
I don't know.
other options for vaccines. As we heard, what it will do in Denmark is it will delay
So
herd
pretty.
immunity from expecting everyone to have their first dose by June to probably after summer. So that has made a lot of people in Denmark, where I'm sitting now, not so happy. But Denmark has said, they've done their risk-benefit analysis. They don't feel that the risks
I don't know, it's just
outweigh
pretty.
the benefits enough. It's a country with low COVID-19 transmission, low rates of hospitalization, low mortality, so they decided to focus on
This
the
one goes
mRNA
first.
vaccines.
But nonetheless, this decision is going to cause enormous damage. Do you think AstraZeneca still has a role to play in
Not
the
that
global
one.
fight against COVID-19?
I think AstraZeneca has a huge and essential, and really a central role to play. I mean, as Europe has other options, remember Pfizer and Moderna require very low degrees of refrigeration that
God,
many
thank you.
lower income countries won't be able to handle. The
Just-
logistics are complicated, so the EU will start using more of
God, I'm
those
not an
vaccines,
expert.
and that frees up
I know more
AstraZeneca,
than therapists,
vaccines
than my
for the
therapist.
rest of the world, where they don't need that kind of refrigeration, and also
I
the
just don't
cost
think
is
a client
lower.
should have to
And again,
educate the
EMA
therapist.
declared that this is a safe vaccine, so I hope the
But
message
what can you
going
do?
out to other countries around the world is that this is a safe vaccine, but the EU countries for various
In other words,
reasons
if
have
you didn't spend
decided
time
to
on the
focus
internet,
other vaccines.
you probably don't
But
know.
isn't there a risk now that we're creating, or by these decisions, that there's going to be created a 2 or even a 3-tier system where it seems as if the people in Europe can afford the richer ones, which do longer, but if you can't, it's this kind of like buy cheap, buy twice.
How are you gonna find them? They don't.
I
They don't have
understand
books,
that,
I don't
but still,
think.
I would beg to differ. I mean, this is an approved vaccine. 34 million Europeans or more now have been vaccinated with it in the UK and in the European Union. And many of the countries are continuing with
Thornbergs.
it. So Denmark's a small country. They decided
I don't
not
think
to
he
use it. Other
does.
countries,
Right.
like the UK, have decided those over 30. Spain's using it for the 60 to 70-year-olds. So different countries have taken different decisions.
It was filmed in Australia, I think.
Uniform decision to right now
Something like that.
to reject use of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Sam Neill and Nicole Kidman.
And European countries have reacted differently following reports of very rare blood clots in a handful of
Some
recipients
guy.
of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine in the United States. Sweden says it will pause plans to start using the jab until it gets a report from the bloc's regulator, while Poland, Hungary and France all say they're ready and willing to administer their doses. Now, our reporter David Chazan is in Paris, and he says that authorities there are keen to ramp up vaccinations.
Houston
The French
Stewart
health authorities have
Chamberlain.
been stressing that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has
Chamberlain.
been approved by the European Medicines Agency,
whatever
and that the
what's
risk
his
of
name
those
was,
severe
so
blood
that's
clots you mentioned is very,
Chancellor?
very small, and
Prime
so
Minister.
the benefits far outweigh the risks, and that's essentially the
Chancellor's behind
message
the
that we've been
scenes.
hearing from the French authorities about the
So they're both Prime
AstraZeneca
Ministers.
vaccine too. So
Right.
France is continuing with both of these vaccines, although I think the news that Denmark is halting AstraZeneca is likely to further increase the reluctance of many people in France to have
I never
that
thought you were
vaccine.
rude.
The news about Johnson & Johnson may also do that. But the French health authorities are really stressing that vaccination is the only way forward now. And I mean, after a painfully slow start to its vaccine rollout, France is really now accelerating, and vaccinations are being done at pharmacies.
I don't know if they knew about it, but I think
as well as vaccination
if they did,
centres
that's
and
what I
by
thought.
GPs. So
I'd rather die than watch it
wants to
continue.
start turning the corner on vaccinations very soon. They're really picking up the pace.
I don't know if that's Joe or
Joe
not.
Biden says it's time to end America's longest war as NATO allies weigh plans to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. The US president intends to pull US
hoping it
forces out
wasn't.
of the country by September the 11th, the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and Washington. His allies appear to be on the same page, with Germany's defense minister telling local media, "We go in together and we go out together."
Right, you have to listen to
Well, Bradley
libraries.
Bowman is a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense
Just saying about
Democracies.
that.
He thinks the troop withdrawal is a bad idea.
Well, all of
I'll be
history,
honest, I think this is a short-sighted and dangerous mistake. by the
Eastern,
administration.
Western,
You know, as your
Western
correspondent said,
history
we
is
have
based
roughly
on Jesus and
2,500,
stuff.
3,500 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, more than double that number of NATO partners there. The purpose, why are they there? They're there because, of course, the 9/11 attacks were planned and launched from Afghanistan. They've been there to prevent that from
I
happening
don't know,
again.
it's,
For 20 years, they've effectively done that. By
It's
withdrawing
a
these troops
patriarchal
on a
society.
timeline-based, conditions-ignoring approach that ignores the advice of the military, because we're going to relieve pressure on terrorist groups who will now have more time, breathing space, to respond to attacks against us. So I hope I'm wrong, but I believe this is a mistake that will come to regret. And I think international truth will come back in a matter of years, unfortunately, after Afghanistan.
The sound, unfortunately, on you isn't that great, but we're going to persist because it is an extremely important subject. What message do you think this sends out from the United States? What would you have Joe Biden do?
I would have President Biden reverse course. He's about to make the same mistake that the Obama administration made in Iraq in 2011. They did the exact same thing. They did a timeline-based, condition-ignoring withdrawal in Iraq in 2011, contrary to the advice of the and as a result, we saw the rise of ISIS. Ultimately, the ISIS
It says Bavaria.
American troops had to go back. We're going to see the exact same thing in
Bavaria's
Afghanistan.
up there.
I think Afghanistan today is a better place than it was, when America and the Allies moved in 20 years ago.
There's no question. Ask girls who are ask thousands of girls attending schools. Ask the women who are not being put in soccer stadiums and being stoned to death by the Taliban.
Oh,
There's unquestionably a
I
better
thought
place.
that.
Not perfect. There's serious problems. The Taliban controls a lot of territories, especially rural territories, much to criticize. But the question is not whether we're tired of the conflict. The question is what is necessary to secure our interests. And I give the Biden administration credit. They're admitting that they're ignoring conditions on the ground. That violence levels are not down. They have not broken with Al Qaeda. Bin Laden predicted this years ago. He said we can defeat the United States. We defeated we defeated the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. We can defeat the United States. If you kill enough Americans, they will withdraw like they did in Vietnam, like they did in Somalia, like they did in Iran. We're about to provide a major talking point to terrorist groups around the world that they will use to recruit radicalized terrorists, and that will affect, unfortunately, all of us, all democracies.
Beirut.
Still to come on the programme, there are only 100 days left before the start of the Tokyo Olympics, but concerns are growing over whether the games should even take place.
Beirut, Lebanon. Alright, Beirut. I guess I don't know where Lebanon is. No.
in program. The former policewoman in Minnesota has been charged with manslaughter over the fatal shooting of a black man, Dante Wright. Matthew McHugh has the latest.
Well, these charges are a hugely significant development on a story that has gripped the United States for a number of days now. Dante Wright was just 20 years old when he died after being shot by police during a traffic stop in the suburb of Minneapolis on Sunday evening. After police body cam footage of this incident was released, the authorities initially stated that they believe his death was a case of accidental discharge, with the former police chief of Brooklyn Center saying that he believed a female police officer had intended to draw her taser, but had instead pulled out her handgun and fired a single bullet which fatally wounded Dante Wright. Well, yesterday, both that former police chief and the police officer, Kim Potter, who fired that weapon, were resigning from their positions. And many people, including the mayor of Brooklyn Center, Mike Elliott, said that they hoped that these resignations would bring calm to the community. However, in a press conference, the mayor also reiterated that he would ensure that justice is served and that those people responsible for the death of Dante Wright would be held accountable. Well, it's been announced on Wednesday by a Minnesota prosecutor that former police officer, Kim Potter, has now been charged with second-degree manslaughter, a crime that has a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. This latest development is hopefully going to ease tensions in the city of Minneapolis. But as we've seen from these pictures here, for 3 consecutive nights, protesters have been gathering outside this Brooklyn Center Police Headquarters, which has now been fortified with a concrete wall and a high metal fence. Protesters throwing projectiles towards the police, who responded with tear gas and with rubber bullets. Now, many people who have been gathering at these rallies, they do not believe the claims by the police that it was an accidental shooting. Instead, they say that the death of Dante Wright is an indication of how slanted the American justice system is compared to those people in the black community. And those words have also been echoed by a number of high-profile politicians in the United States, such as Congresswoman Cori Bush, who said that the police actions at these demonstrations should also be looked into. The US President Joe Biden has previously stated that he understands the anger and trauma that black communities across America are feeling every day, and he also echoed those words to make sure that justice is being served. But of course, this death, the death of Dante Wright, is taking place in the same US state where it was just last year that George Floyd was killed by a police officer on May 26th. George Floyd's death, which sparked a global movement against racism and social injustice in a city that is already charged in its tensions between the police and between its citizens. So Minnesota prosecutors announcing that they are indeed charging that former police officer over the killing of Dante Wright. But those demonstrations in Minneapolis look set to continue for a 4th day.
Well, as Matthew was just explaining there, the trial of Derek Chauvin is well underway in Minneapolis. On day 13, Judge Peter Cahill turned down a request to acquit Chauvin. His lawyer had said the prosecution failed to prove his actions killed George Floyd, but Judge Peter Cahill rejected the motion, saying some witnesses had argued Chauvin's use of force was unreasonable. There are only 100 days left to go before the Olympic Games finally get underway in Japan, with the COVID-19 pandemic delaying the event. To mark the milestone countdown, buildings and bridges lit up the Tokyo skyline. Earlier, the organising committee also unveiled the set of Olympic rings on
I don't remember any. I don't think Lewis Clark did Wagner.
Paralympic mascots at the Tokyo Metropolitan Government headquarters. While competitors themselves have been gearing up for the big event, including Olympic swimmer Farida Osman from Egypt. She says pool closures have been the biggest hurdle in her training.
No, I never was a Games. You didn't have to be around.
It's been a year postponed, so everyone's just getting extra ready, getting faster, getting stronger. Everyone's trying to get
I don't know how I got a
the
patch.
best possible preparation.
Yeah, they have patches and shit.
So personally, I would say I feel like I'm confident enough in my training and I'm ready to perform.
I don't know how to think of a science project.
By the pandemic.
I think I brought it up. He may have brought it up. I don't know.
As everyone knows,
Together, kind of like curdling of milk. And the curdle weighed less at the end of a certain amount of time than the non-colloidal silver one. So that was pretty scientific.
So I could be with my family around this difficult time, just like my comfort zone. So as the pools were closed, I tried to be as creative as possible. I was lucky enough to be able to access a pool really close to home, so I could maybe go in certain hours and not really for a long time.
is a
and
phrase
then,
I've heard
for
before.
weights and gyms, I would have to buy my own
That may have
equipment.
come from my heart
So I
spontaneously.
definitely have to be creative. It was nice to have a different
No,
training
from
for change, but at the same time I have to be
hard
committed
to
and
find it.
disciplined. So I
Didn't seem
don't
like
lose
propaganda.
So how do you
I
feel
think I
about
did.
going to Japan?
I
We've
don't
seen
think
the
I
organisers there and the mascot putting a brave face
put it
on
down.
things, but athletes have been told to
I just had a
arrive
feeling it
late
was all
and
crap.
leave early if they are coming to
And then
Japan
she
this
was the
year.
one that was the best seller.
I think
Hers was the best seller, you know?
say we should be scared, but I think I trust everyone's doing their job and everyone's gonna try to be as safe as possible. I am
don't know,
planning
it
on
just
being
didn't
vaccinated
ring.
before I go, and I think a lot of athletes are planning on doing so too. So I think that might
I don't
be
really
putting it
remember.
a little bit more at ease, but at the same time,
It just wasn't
try to be safe.
like the other books, and that was the one that was the best seller.
Can you understand
You know,
people in Japan who say that this game shouldn't go ahead?
or whatever.
Yeah, I completely understand because it's the Olympics. It is the biggest event in the world, and
Why are you
everyone in the world
alarmed?
watches it. I know, my parents are not going to be able to come and watch because it's only open for local
Well,
spectators.
they're very
That's
much
gonna
against
be a
people
huge difference for
being
sure,
aware
and
of
I think,
anything remotely like spiritual
from an
phenomena,
athlete's
which would
perspective,
be
I
near-death
think we
experiences
would
and
be
stuff.
very bummed if it doesn't go ahead, but at the same
I
time,
think there's
we
truth in
understand
that,
because our health
but I think there are so
is
many
our
chemicals
number
on
one
our
priority,
planet
obviously.
that
But at the same time,
the math gets
our
negated
hard
for
work
the
and sacrifice and all the things
attitudes
that
of
was
health
put
and
in,
stuff.
we definitely want it to go ahead.
Still to come on the
PCBs are
program, paying for the
pesticides.
pandemic, a number of member states are still to ratify the deal.
I don't even know.
Will release the EU's recovery funds. More on that in a moment.
This week,
Well, I
on
knew
Euro
about it,
News,
and
human
it was
activity
one way of
such as
looking at
burning
it.
fossil
Well, he's
fuels
not going to get a
and
high
degrading our planet
PCB.
and taking a
It
toll
makes
on
you
our
dumb.
environment. That's why some countries are doing their part
Makes you
to invest in
stupid.
a more sustainable future. We visit the world's largest single-site solar park in Dubai, which is using solar tech to energize its urban environments and people alike.
What do you think you know? No, I mean, well, I don't.
All of that and more.
The United
That's
States
this
is,
week in SciTech on
I
Europe
perceive it as
News.com.
the center of all the corruption in the world. I understand that. I don't know. Center of, producer of, right. I really can't say for sure. Just God. Well, you did have it. You had that basic information. He called it sparks. When they die, their spirits can rise up. You know, but if they haven't, right, if they haven't kept their lamps lit with chocolate and shit, then they can't. I think it's kind of a way of thinking of it. I don't think it's actual traveling.
Welcome back to the program. It's good to have you here with us. The European Union is waiting for 10 member states to
I don't think you guys intercept
fund plan. Until they do, no money will
good
be released to
people
help countries
when they
get
die
back on track from the health pandemic.
and trap
Susan
them in
Douglas
evil.
reports.
The long-awaited Next Generation EU recovery plan is nearly ready, but 10 member states have yet to ratify it.
People have heard when they're unconscious or in surgery, they've recounted conversations that surgeons are having and stuff.
In the capital market from this year
Yeah.
to 2026. Financial aid to economically troubled states could begin as soon as July, but ratification is urgently
And let me
needed.
think if there's a
So
good
far,
one.
17 out of 27 member states
I think
have
there's a good
concluded
one
the
in a couple of
ratification
them.
process. Among the ones to not
Didn't want to
is
go
Germany,
back.
where the Constitutional Court in Karlsruhe has stopped the adoption of the law finalizing the process. But EU Budget Commissioner Johannes Hahn is still confident.
Germany, Chancellor Merkel, together with President Macron, who very much pushed exactly for this financial facility we have finally created. We have
that was
created on the basis
eye-opener for me.
of an Article 122 in the Lisbon
The truth when we see
which
this,
is
we know
exactly
we are.
addressing the legal concerns of a country like Germany. So this means I'm